Hello and welcome to Me and My Golf. We're your coaches Piers and Andy, and it's the Impact Show, and we've got a very special guest, Andy.
Yes, we've got a very special guest to kick the month off, and today we're talking about 3 things for a more consistent golf swing. Let's take charge of your game. So to kick off our theme for the month, which is Break 100, as you can see, we have a very special guest, good friend of ours and PGA golf coach, Chris Ryan. Chris, how are you?
I'm very well, how are you?
Good to have you here at the
Fantastic to
Asprey.
be here.
Now, before we get into it, it's Masters Week. Who's excited?
It's so good, isn't it? Especially this winter, it's felt like it's been so long.
Yeah.
I just look forward to this week so much.
It is.
Yeah.
It kicks the season off, doesn't it? You know, it gets to this time of year where it gets really warm. Very cold here today. Gets really warm, and then the season sort of just starts to kick off.
Yeah.
As soon as the Masters here, it just ignites the season, doesn't
Absolutely.
it?
I mean, here in the UK, the clocks have just changed, so we get like an extra hour of light, so people are getting out to play more golf, and then the Masters kicks in. It's just fantastic.
It is.
Probably the best time to tell him that we're going. Does he know yet?
I don't know if he
We're
does
actually
yet.
going. So we're going to be there for the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. We're going with Adidas. So if you're there, come find
Yes,
us.
come and say hello. Right, okay, look, now as we mentioned, the theme for this month, April, is all about Break 100. So a lot of the content over on our website is going to be based around that, including a coaching plan which goes live next week on the 9th of April. Now, Chris, consistency. We're talking about consistencies, aren't we? 3 things that are going to make a more consistent golf swing.
Has anyone ever asked you they want to be more consistent before?
So there's, I mean, you guys will know this because you obviously coach as I do, and there's a couple of words that crop up more than any other, and this is one of them.
It's a
This
big
is
one.
one of them, isn't it? Because people come in and say, you know, my good shots are good. You know, and they kind of almost go, well, I don't need to improve those, but it's the consistency, and they kind of wonder why they can't produce that every single time.
Yeah. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to ask him three
You've got 3 in the bag
top
you can give us
tips
today.
to improve consistency. So let's get straight into it. Number 1, what we're going to do.
So we're going to look at setup.
Okay.
Looking at setup. So, you know, nobody hit a bad shot because the setup was poor. It's going to be because the impact was poor. But if the setup is poor, we often then see poor movements in the body, and then it obviously links to a kind of poor impact.
Knock-on effect.
Absolutely. So, you know, when we look at setup and we see maybe some poorer positions, we see some trends.
Yeah.
And those trends are maybe due to how we hold the golf club. So if I was to just take my starting position here and just place the club in, we would generally like to see the handle a little forward of centre.
Yeah.
And then the lead hand is going to be on the top.
Okay.
That's fine. It's when we apply this trail hand, that's when we start to see a few issues. So this trail hand has to go lower, and it has to go more to the left of my body. And when we do that, we often see this kind of reach over with this right hand, and it tends to kind of back the hips up.
Yeah.
It tends to align them more left. We tend to see the right shoulder getting too high, and this would be a pretty common setup. Now,
Stay there.
I've maybe slightly exaggerated this, but
We see this all the time, don't we? And this is death, isn't it, to golfers?
absolutely. So as soon as I'm in this position, you know, we as coaches kind of almost can predict what type of body movement this golfer's going to have. We tend to see a lot of kind of lateral movement with the hips. We tend to see the upper body, you know, kind of reversing this way a little bit. And then, you know, from there we struggle to sequence the downswing, and obviously impact becomes very, very difficult.
Just show that again. Just actually go through the whole backswing there and just show how that looks when you go into those bad positions.
So right hand reaches down, hips back up, and then from here we generally tend to see a lot of kind of this movement with the body
There we
shape. I find it very difficult to turn. I actually feel quite a bit of pressure on my lower
To
back
speak.
as well. Yeah, very difficult to speak, and we struggle from there. So a little exercise I like to get golfers to do to just start to sense what we'd like to see. I mean, we know, you know, we use a little bit of 3D stuff. We'd like to see a little bit of angle in the body. So I just like to get a golfer to set themselves up this way and just stand up normally and just put their arms out to the side. And I like them to get their trail arm a little lower than the lead arm, but feeling that happens more from the hips. So as I start to just raise my lead hip and move it a little towards the target, I just feel like I get a little bit of that sort of tilt in my body. I then want to just put my hands together and work down into my starting position. So I'm starting to feel a little bit that my lead hip is higher. I feel a little bit that my trail shoulder is lower. And we could almost feel that movement when we place that trail hand onto the golf club. So if I place my lead hand on first, I want my trail hand to feel like it goes on because I make a little bit of a movement forward with my hips. Then that allows my trail hand to go on, but I can maintain some good alignment and I get some good body shape. From here, I'm going to find it much easier to kind of wind up into the backswing with a pretty good shape.
It's a great point.
It's amazing how just the setup differences influences obviously the movement.
Huge.
And obviously what we're talking about here is when we talk about consistency, it's delivering the club back to a consistent impact, whether it's club face, whether it's club path, and just positioning your body in a way that's going to allow you to produce a better movement will change what you do when it comes back to the golf ball.
Absolutely. And many of the people watching this video, I'm sure, will find that driver is the one which is maybe less consistent. And this is often more exaggerated with the drive.
Yeah.
Because the ball tends to be a little further forward, we almost get a more exaggerated version of that.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna hit a shot doing this. So is this
Absolutely.
how you do the drill? This is
Absolutely.
exactly how you do it.
Yeah. So
I really like this because just actually, as Chris said, how many people focus on just putting the hand in there and then try and almost square things up, pushing the hip first.
Absolutely.
Love it.
And then this goes under. Much better from there, and then I can just hopefully use the body better.
Stripes it. Very nice.
Very nice.
Okay, took a big divot out of the tee. Apologise for that.
Yeah. Sorry, Ken.
It's all right, we've got some seeds.
We've got some seed. All right. Okay. So look, great tip. We've got another one coming up though. haven't
We have.
Okay, Chris, so there's something that's set up. What is the next drill?
So we've obviously got people set up better. They're all going to have perfect setups now after that. So the next kind of thing we're going to look at is just how that club's moved away from the golf ball. So kind of we said at the start of the video that impact is really the key thing we're trying to change, but if the golfer moves incorrectly from the get-go, they're playing a little bit of a game of catch-up and recovery. So in terms of the takeaway, we tend to, again, similar to the setup, we tend to see some common trends across the golfers that we see. So a very common trend would be the hands moving too much away from the golfer.
Yeah.
The club head tends to move too much behind the golfer, and they will often tend to get that club face a little bit too open, pointing kind of up to the sky. So straight away, we've lost a little bit of connection, we've lost the sync, we've lost the timing. Doesn't mean we can't hit good shots from there, but we're probably not going to get consistency. It's still going to be hard to repeat that movement.
I think if you look at the best players in the world, there's always a key there. We're not saying copy the best players in the world with everything they do, but there are very few golfers who've been great golfers who will bring that club inside. Ray Floyd is the one I can remember, but you could probably name 10.
Absolutely.
Ever, you know, whereas you go on the PGA Tour, European Tour now, LPGA Tour, they're all getting that club probably either on plane or slightly above the plane.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at any fault, you can go on YouTube, you can find a golfer who demonstrates that fault and plays great golf. But certainly in trends, we would tend to see this movement tending to give golfers more inconsistency.
Okay.
And if we want to, and I think the key thing with this as well is that we want to minimise compensations, don't we?
100%.
If we're starting off bad and then we need to then, as you said, Chris, play catch up, then it's just hard to be consistent. Whereas if we get off to the right start, then the club face is in a better place, the shaft's in a better place. The need for compensation is almost taken away. So then you can produce a more consistent impact, with the club face.
Exactly, yeah, because golfers are quite talented. They will make compensations to try and recover things, but then it's going to give that kind of 2 or 3 successful shots out of 10 rather than the sort of 7 or 8 that we're trying to get them to.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so that was the disconnected move away, we call it. So what's the fix for that?
Correct. So the disconnected move for me would have a little bit too much roll of the forearms, maybe not enough cock or set of the wrists.
Okay.
So this little exercise, this little drill is going to kind of train the opposite kind of movement. So I would like to get a golfer to set themselves up to a golf ball and then just go right down to the bottom of the handle.
Okay.
As you can see I've done here, and then just allow the club to kind of hover above the golf ball. So as I move this club away, I'm trying to really think about the relationship between the grip end and my trail thigh. So if I make the common move, which would be this, you can see how the distance between the butt end of the club and my thigh got greater. What I'm trying to get the golfer to do is to feel like as they rotate back and they keep their hands sort of closer to them, as they start to use their wrists a little bit more, the grip end will actually just make contact with the top of my thigh or maybe my right pocket. And what that's really ensuring that I do is I start to rotate my upper body, but rather than use too much forearms, I'm starting to use a little bit of wrist set. Now, if we do this, we're probably going to see that the club gets a little bit more, kind of outside my hands. But this is kind of, we would see more better players trending towards this than the opposite move. So, that wouldn't be a bad, look or a feel for the golfers who struggle with that takeaway. When I do this, I feel like I've got my left arm a little closer to my chest. I feel like I've got the club head working a little bit more up in front of me. And we're probably going to find that we get a much better position halfway back, and then we can start to see some better stuff happening from there on.
So if you just do that again for me. So obviously we know the bad one, the disconnected move away. If someone does the drill, so show me the drill one more time. So by doing that drill, what's the reality of what they would probably do when they hit a golf shot? If they're normally disconnecting it behind them, but they feel like they're doing this, what would it actually probably look like?
Probably something around about here where, the club shaft will be fairly parallel to my ball to target line, or depending on where you're looking at through the camera, the club head would be pretty much covering my hands, and again parallel to my toe line. And the hands would be relatively close to that trail thigh.
If you're someone who does bring the club around the body like Chris demonstrated there, there's no way you're going to get the club into a position where it's too much out in front of you early on. So the exaggeration of feeling that is probably just, as you said, just going to put you perfectly on plane.
And I'm a great example of that because I struggle with this takeaway.
Yes.
And when I hit golf balls, I try and feel this, and I've had arguments with the camera because I feel like I've done something and watched it back and it's looked pretty good. So, there's that understanding there that we maybe have to slightly exaggerate the movements, the positions to try and get something that looks looks pretty good.
I think what I like so much about this drill, it almost gives you 3 for 1. You've got the arms more synchronised to the chest on the way back, you've got the shaft in a better place, and you've got the face looking at the ball for a little bit longer. So 3 things that we'd like to see in the backswing: synchronisation with the arms, the club on plane, and the club face doing a good job. You know, again, we talk about these compensations. That is so much better and a lot less work to do on the way down.
Absolutely, and that's what we're trying to get. You know, the golfers that we kind of coach, and probably the ones who are watching this, we've got jobs, families, so we haven't got as much time to practice. We want something that's going to be more repeatable, easier to reproduce, and just requires less skill.
Yeah.
You know, the better technique, will obviously give that.
So we know you're doing this drill. As you said, this is something you struggle with a little bit yourself.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to really try and focus on this. So when I do this with a shot, I'm not going to get that contact because I've got the full length of the club, but I'm still trying to feel that I get this kind of movement. And I'm going to have to watch this back afterwards and see how close I got, but I'm really going to start to exaggerate that and see if I can get a little closer.
Very nice
Pretty
shot
decent
there.
shot.
Felt very exaggerated, but it probably didn't look that way.
Well, maybe I'll have a look on the slow-mo with that one and see where we get to.
See where it was.
All right, so we've got one more. Come on.
We have.
What's tip number 3?
Okay, tip number 3 is a great tip.
Right then, Chris. Tip number 3. This is very
He's going to hit all
interesting.
5 at once.
I'm going to hit all 5 at
Shots.
once. This is one of my most favourite drills. I love doing this drill, and I call this a little bit more of a transitional drill. So the 2 things we spoke about so far have been kind of technique based, but this is kind of more developing the golfer's skill level.
Okay.
We kind of know that skill pretty much overrides technique, which is why we see the odd golfer with pretty poor technique but playing on PGA Tour, European Tour, LPGA Tour. So if we're looking to be more consistent, I really think the golfers have got to try and focus on technique, but focus on also developing their skill as golfers. And so on the course, it's our job to really try and understand or try and develop a skill that we can make the ball go to our target, even though we might not be in a perfect situation. So let's go through what this little drill is. The golf ball in the middle would be if I was setting myself up to a normal shot.
Okay.
But you can see how I've got 4 of the golf balls. 1 is further away from me, 1 is closer to me, 1 is further forward, 1 is further back. So the idea would be I set up to this one, and without moving my feet, I've got to try and hit those other 4 golf balls and finish on my target. Now, the obvious question might be, well, why the hell would I do that? Because that's different. But the golf course asks us questions that the driving range doesn't.
Exactly.
Uphills, downhills, even to the point where you get a golf ball in the rough and it's sitting kind of really high up and that kind of thing. And also the amateur golfers out there that are watching this possibly won't set themselves up perfect every time.
Yeah.
They might, you know, for example, one hole set themselves up a little bit further away, a little bit too close, ball slightly further forward. And if they can't deal with those situations, if they kind of just think, well, I'm going to make my driving range swing, they catch it off the toe, they catch it off the heel, they catch it off the top, the bottom. So this really develops my skill of almost the game of golf, making that thing, hit that thing and make it go towards your target. And you know, the example I always give would be if you took Rory McIlroy on the golf course with a 7-iron and moved the ball slightly further away from him, where would he hit the ball?
Yeah.
Still straight to the middle of the green. And that, if you asked him what he's done, he probably couldn't answer that. And I call them little micro moves, or things that you do in your swing to just make that ball go towards your target.
So what this is really going to do is going to give you almost more of a heightened awareness of actually where that club head is
100%.
in space. And I think if any of us here were to say have the task of maybe trying to hit the toe, hit the heel, would have a good idea of actually how to get it to there without having to think too much. And I think this is what that's going to develop, that heightened awareness of the club face.
I like the way you said you didn't about it in the centre.
Yeah.
We're not good at that.
The centre, what's that?
Exactly. Shall I have a go?
Oh yeah, so which one are you going to hit?
Okay, so I'm going to set myself to this one.
Let's hit 2.
Yep, so I'm going to I'll hit the back one.
Okay, so let's get these out of the way.
Okay, that's fine. So I'm going to set myself up where I would normally be. That ball is a lot further back.
Andy, step back.
And I'm going to just
It's
try
a good skill level, Pierce, this one has.
Okay. And I think what the golfers are probably going to find here is that they can hit the shot. It might change the ball flight a little bit. It might be a little lower, a little higher. But the idea is trying to get it towards your target.
Okay, so you're going to hit this. So set it to
So that's where my original
there,
golf ball would be.
Then we're going to go this one.
And would you say, Chris, here that, you know, when they do this, they're not really thinking too much about how to get it to target? They're almost just reacting and saying, well, okay, well, ball's back. They're just sort of feeling their way around things.
100%. And that's why I like this drill, because it's a transitional, it's a task-oriented drill as opposed to a positional drill. So, like you say, they're not thinking about, well, what am I going to do? It's a case of we'll just react to where the golf ball is.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where I'd normally be set up. Golf ball is clearly a couple of inches further away from me.
You're definitely
and
not
I'm just going to
safe
try.
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking I should move more now. Very good.
Okay. But again, it still managed to deliver the club to the ball, and that's golf.
Yeah.
Golf is having the ability to make that club collide with the ball in such a way that you can make it go towards your target. If the lie of the situation isn't perfect, we just have to have the skill to be able to deal with that.
Yeah.
And
Really
hopefully
good.
that little kind of exercise.
That's excellent, isn't it?
It is.
Really
I like that.
Really
And what I like about that is the fact that how many people just get to the driving range and just practice one thing, and it's not really setting them up for the golf course, is it? So, you know, how many people say to us, well, I'm great on the driving range, but on the golf course, I just can't take that game to the course. And this is simulating what you're going to experience out there.
Yes, and I think, you know, when I go on the golf course with people, I often see them with a 7-iron hitting a great shot to the green. Next hole, the ball's slightly below their feet.
Yeah.
They top it and they go, I'm just inconsistent.
Yeah.
And you go, well, there's a great example of why, because you just couldn't deal with that situation. And practicing off a driving range mat won't give you those skills, and hopefully that drill will kind of go somewhere to doing that.
Superb,
Brilliant.
superb.
I like
well,
it.
do you know what? Obviously, if you haven't seen Chris before, definitely recommend going and check out his YouTube channel, his Instagram, his Facebook, doing lots of great stuff. And we're going to do some more work with you later in the year, hopefully.
Yeah,
Well,
for
watch it
Chris as
yourself.
well, we'll put all the links in the description, so
Yes.
make sure you click that, and you will improve by watching his videos. Very, very good. Now, also, talking about more videos, next week we have an amazing coaching plan, Break 100, which is launching, and here's a sneak peek of what it's all about.
So if you want the chance to win this amazing coaching plan, click the link in the corner and enter the competition today. Good luck, guys.